cheeks are so red now.
They're not.
Okay. Hi and welcome back to my channel. It's been a very long time since I posted my last video, 7 months to be exact, but I've been very busy with school and I don't know how to manage my time very well, so I've been putting all of my effort into that and not into this at all. But I figured with the current situation and being isolated at home, what better time to get back into it. And me and my boyfriend have been playing a lot of Animal Crossing, as I'm sure a lot of people have right now. And it just reminds me of when we went to Japan and I found some of my favorite foods ever there, which I didn't realize before I went. And I really want to try remaking those recipes but making them vegan instead. So that's the plan for today. So I plan on making onigiri 3 different ways, gyoza and agedashi tofu. And I'm hoping each of those is gonna work out. I've never made any of them before, so come along on the journey of me trying to make these for the first time. Okay, so to start off this very long day of cooking, I figured I would start soaking and rinsing the rice because that was going to take me a little while. So I just rinsed it a few times and then set it off to the side with a little bit more water in the bowl and let it soak for 30 minutes. Then I moved on to prepping the fillings for my onigiri. So for this one, I used some Gardein fish fillets and took the breading off. And I mixed that with some vegan mayo and a little bit of mirin. And I set that aside in the fridge just until I was going to need it later. Then I started prepping some of the ingredients for my gyoza. So I didn't have any cabbage, but I did have some iceberg lettuce. So I ended up using that instead, and it added a nice freshness and crunch to the gyoza. I think next time if I had green cabbage, I would use that instead, but I definitely enjoyed the iceberg lettuce more than I thought I would. I also wanted to add some nice meaty and earthy flavors to the gyoza, so I had rehydrated some shiitake mushrooms in some water with a little bit of kombu seaweed to prepare the sauce for my agedashi tofu, which I ended up actually not getting a video of, so unfortunately I don't have any of that prep. But anyways, I just used the shiitake mushrooms and cut them into small pieces and added them to the filling as well. I also chose to add some garlic and ginger, both of which I just chopped up as finely as I could and mixed into the rest of the filling. I noticed on the recipe that I was following from Just One Cookbook, they said that they use ginger in their gyoza filling as well because that's what their mom did, and I just thought it would add a nice bit of zest and aromatics. Next up, I added some rehydrated TVP, or textured vegetable protein, and this was going to sort of act as like a pork sort of portion of the filling. And I just seasoned it with some sesame oil, some soy sauce, some mirin, and some rice vinegar, along with a bit of salt and pepper. And the recipe that I was following also called for sake, but I didn't have any, so I just tried to use what I had on hand. It ended up turning out quite nice. It had a good balance of some different flavors, some saltiness, sweetness, and earthiness. So it's pretty good. Next up, I just mixed everything together in the bowl. I started with a spatula and then I ended up switching to my hands. And because a lot of the ingredients were fairly wet, and then adding the salt drew some of the moisture out of the iceberg lettuce, the mixture did become a little bit too wet, so I did squeeze some of the excess liquid out with my hands. Luckily, the filling stayed very flavorful, so that was all good. Then here I tried to sort of make everything stick together a little bit better by adding a bit of tapioca flour or tapioca starch. And then this helped things sort of just meld together a little bit better. Next up, I am straining my rice that I had been soaking for half an hour, and then this needs to sit off to the side again for I think another 15 minutes to 30 minutes. So while that was happening, I started filling the gyoza. This was a very long process. I ended up getting my boyfriend to come and help me fill a bunch of them and seal them. And it started off pretty slow with the folding. I wanted to make sure that I was folding them well so that I wasn't having anything escape on me when I started cooking them. It ended up working out really well. For this first dumpling, I used a folding method where you start in the middle and make your way to each end. But I ended up just going from one side to another, as you can see here with most of the rest of them. While I was folding them, I placed a damp paper towel over the wrappers that I hadn't used yet. They were still in the package, and I also put a damp paper towel over the gyoza dumplings that I had folded, just so that they didn't become too stiff or eventually become rubbery when I cooked them. It just helped the dumpling wrappers stay soft and malleable so that they were easy to work with. Next up, I started to cook my rice. So for onigiri, I kept seeing online that it was important to have good quality rice and for it to be freshly cooked. You want the rice to be slightly warm when you are pressing the onigiri together. So I just cooked that according to the instructions on the package. And then here I am putting it out onto a plate so that it can cool a little bit faster and not get all clumped together and have some spots that are cold and some spots that are hot. And then once that cooled down enough to handle, I dipped my hands in water, put some coarse salt on them, and then I pressed the rice in between my hands. I probably should have watched a YouTube video or something to see how to do this properly, but I sort of just followed the instructions that were on the recipe that I was following. And then I filled a bunch of them with the sort of fish and mayo mixture, fake fish and mayo mixture that I made at the beginning of the video, and pressed those into little triangle like ball shapes and added a bit of nori onto the bottom. And they ended up turning out really good. I also used a bit of the filling on top to mark which ones had which fillings in them. For the second filling, I used a mixture of seaweed that I cooked on the stove in a pan with some sesame oil and some soy sauce. It just rehydrated the seaweed and also gave it a really nice salty flavor. This one was probably my favorite. I think the tuna mayo one, I should have added a little bit more salt or something to the filling to make the filling a little bit saltier, but the mixture of the white rice with the salty seaweed was honestly super good. And for the last onigiri that I wanted to make, I wanted to do sort of a kimchi fried rice style one because we had that when we were in Okinawa in Japan, and it was like the best onigiri I've ever eaten. I think the ones that we had might have had egg in them, but I obviously wasn't going to put that in ours. So I just used some sesame seed, and then I pressed this into, I guess, like a little, almost like a burger patty sort of shape. And I put those off to the side until I was ready to fry them in a pan. When I fried them, I did them in a little bit of vegetable oil, I believe. And just let each side get crispy and sticky so that it would hold together and keep its shape once it had cooled down as well. Then here I am starting to make the gyoza, or cook the gyoza. To do this, I added a bit of oil to a pan, vegetable oil, and then let the bottoms of the gyoza get browned. Once they were brown, I added a bit of water and covered it with a lid so that they could steam the tops of them. And then I also added a little bit of sesame oil at the end. I didn't show it here, but I added a bit of sesame oil to crisp up the bottoms a little bit more and set them off to the side. And I also made a dipping sauce for the gyoza that was really yummy. That one was just a tablespoon of soy sauce with a tablespoon of rice vinegar. And I think it was like an 1/8 of a teaspoon or 1/4 of a teaspoon of chili oil, which we had from a ramen restaurant that we order from often. And then I mixed this together. I think the recipe that I was like loosely following called for just a 1/4 teaspoon of, or an 1/8 of a teaspoon of chili oil, but I did a 1/4, and honestly it was a little bit spicy for me, but it was still really delicious. And then last but not least, I'm starting to make the agedashi tofu. So to do this, I took a block of medium firm tofu and just pressed the water out of it for maybe about 15 minutes under a heavier plate that we have. Then I just cut it into cubes, and to coat them, I threw them in a little bowl with some potato starch, potato flour, rolled it around, added it to some hot vegetable oil. I think I used canola again. And then I just fried them in the oil until they were light brown and crispy on each side. And I set them on a cooling rack to cool till they were ready to eat. Okay, so almost 5 hours later and all of these dishes later, at least we have a lot of really good food. I'm really excited to try everything. I don't know what I should try first. Maybe I'll try the tofu first. I don't want to take one that's like just out of the pot. That's really good. I think it would have been better if I used soft tofu, but honestly it's really good. I get to try all of these before you. I'm kind of afraid of the chili oil. I tried a little bit of the chili oil and it made my mouth hurt really bad. Oh, look at that color though. Okay, combined with that. Not as hot. Oh. I need for the pain. I think I'm gonna get this guy. My eyes are so wide. Chili oil. Oh, that's so good though.
You have to finish it.
I want to. Oh. Okay. And last but not least, kimchi. Fried onigiri? I don't even know what you'd call it. Oh my god. That's so good. Oh yeah. Okay, well, lots of hard work. Definitely ended up in a success. I'm so happy with this. Ugh. My nose will stop running. Okay, so I hope this helps anybody with some ideas for what you can make during self-isolation. If you have all of these pantry staples, I don't know if they're all pantry staples for everybody. They are for us because we like Japanese style food a lot. Also, all of the recipes are going to be linked below that I adapted from. They're all from Just One Cookbook. I think their recipes are really easy to follow, really concise, and really helpful for anybody who's not like accustomed to cooking in a Japanese fashion, which I'm not, but they made it really easy. And also, if you liked this or if you like any of these kinds of foods, hit the thumbs up button, the subscribe button too. I hope to be making more videos like this during isolation for the next however many months we're gonna be stuck like this. and hopefully see you guys next time. Bye!